All right, thank you for joining us. This is a conversation with Mike Biglay. He is a candidate for the 34th District Assemblyman, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Tonia. You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Now, you're from Tehachapi, and do you get to Ridgecrest often?
We actually come out to Spangler Hills every winter for the last 40 years. We off-road.
Oh.
And I used to chucker hunt out here, but I haven't chucker hunted for quite some time now. So this is our supply shop here. We grocery shop here. We come get bike parts, and every once in a while we give the hospital some business.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, all right. So what inspired you to run for the 34th District Assembly?
Well, I'm just tired of not being represented. I was pretty heavy into the national elections in 2014, and I was trying to raise money and do things for all the senators to take over the Senate, and then they finally did it, and nothing got achieved because the GOP hierarchy just stopped everything. Nothing got done. So I decided, rather than just raising money and raising rhetoric on social media, I was going to run for office myself. Because here in California, we have a pretty bad problem that we can't get things done because there's only 28 Republicans and 52 Democrats. So, you know, even if we do things and we do be conservative people, it's hard to get things done here.
Right, right. And how do you think you will be able to affect that? If the odds are against you, how are you going to be able to make change yourself?
Well, everybody's gone up there to fight and to fight for your rights, and they're going to stand strong and fight. So we're in a conservative district, so you're going to get the conservative vote, and you're just preaching to the choir when you're preaching to the people in our district, because we're all conservative.
Right.
So I think we have to go to Sacramento. We can't fight with these people. They're trained not to fight. And I think what we have to do is get them uncomfortable in their own voting districts. I think we have to go pander to their voters, talk to their voters, let them email us, start telling them we're listening to them. And every time we see something that their legislator does that's not right for them, we notify them, let them know it's not right.
Okay, okay.
So we start making their representatives
constituents
uncomfortable.
Okay.
That's right. They need to get uncomfortable in their own voting districts.
Okay. So you talked about equality for, or equal opportunity for all.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's kind of a mouthful in a way. What comes to your mind specifically? Jobs, education, or what are you thinking?
Both jobs and education and vocal training. And just because you're offering equal opportunity for everybody, everybody has to step up and want to have equal opportunity. And I think we need to take away some of the programs that are letting the people not work, not have pride. I think we need to create some jobs. We need to create some opportunities for these people. And the equal opportunity part is some of them are going to strive and some of them are going to excel and some of them are not because they don't want to. But it's going to be equal opportunity. They all have the same opportunity to do it. And as far as rights go, you know, according to the Constitution, we already have equal opportunity. So if we follow the Constitution, and I don't mean equal opportunity for a minority or you know, a majority, they all have the same opportunities. There shouldn't be any special laws written for any one of them. Every one of them should have the same rights. They should be given the same rights. They should be treated the same without making special laws and without doing special, you know, things for people, different groups, small groups, because maybe they organize and they have, I can't think of what they call it, but you know, when they march and do things. I think everybody protests. Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. A peaceful, progressive fall, bring some attention to it. But the Constitution already offers equal rights for everybody. So
that's right.
And the equal opportunity part is offer everybody these things. Offer them a chance to get a job and offer them a chance to have some pride. Because that's what it is. And they used to say a man without a job has no pride.
Well, I've seen some men lose their jobs, and I think it's much harder for men when they lose their jobs than it is for women when they lose their job. As much as women want equal opportunity, and That, by the way, was a topic they hit on that Harvard survey from the Institute of Politics, where the students were saying they really supported more socialism than they did capitalism, and they were concerned about equal opportunity for women. So
well, I think I think women have equal opportunity.
I think so.
And I think, I think the days have not passed when you can open a door for a woman, or you're polite and you treat her like a lady. I don't think that they, maybe some women do, but not all women. I think a lot of women like to be treated as a feminine.
On a pedestal, like to be put on that pedestal.
They do.
My father did that with my mother, and it was nice to see.
It is nice. And I don't think the time has passed when we need to stop doing that.
Right. Good. Good. So now tell me a little bit about how you became a Republican, or what that means to you, or your values and principles system.
Well, it's kind of interesting because my father was a Democrat.
Okay.
He was a union printer.
Is that right?
And I was an
independent. From here in the Valley? Or?
He was from, well, he's originally from San Antonio, Texas, but he lived down in Compton.
Oh, okay.
And they moved to San Fernando Valley because my mother had asthma really bad, and there was a place called Sunland where they had an asthmatic home, so they moved there. But he worked in downtown L.A. He worked for some of the big newspapers. And
L.A. Times?
He worked for L.A. Times, and there was a place called Pacific Press that he used to work for, and he worked for some of the places in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to thinking as I started growing up, and I started thinking about politics. I started thinking about the way we live our lives. Mm-hmm. And most Hispanic people are conservative. And my father was very conservative. Even though he was for the working man, he was a union guy, but he spent his own money. He didn't borrow hardly any money. He didn't hardly buy anything unless he had the money to buy it. And for something, I don't know how they do it, because I know people now that do it. They don't seem to make a lot of money, but they always seem to have a stash of cash somewhere, because, my mother died probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and when they were cleaning out her room, they found like $12,000 in cash stashed away in shoe boxes and little vases, and that's just what they did.
Wow.
They stuffed away, and my dad did the same thing. So, even though he was a Democrat, he was conservative. But so I started thinking.
Well, the meanings kind of morph and change a little bit, don't they? Sometimes.
I don't know. I don't think people, because they say they're a conservative, I don't think some people realize what it is.
Right. What does a conservative mean to you, or a Republican mean to you?
Well, I'll say conservative because Republican is a party, and the party is divided right now, and has been divided for a long time, and not just with Donald Trump doing what he's doing, because the Tea Party came into power in 2010. If the Republican Party wanted to grow their party, they could have accepted the Tea Party. They got the Congress for them. They had the power of the purse. They don't want to grow in that direction. The GOP establishment is growing towards progressivism, bigger business, bigger, there's Wall Street. Both Wall Street is for Democrats and Republicans. They're both got the same donors. So I see being a conservative as having enough government to have the things you need in government. You need police, you need fire, you need infrastructure. But then in the capitalistic society, you have a lot of private industry. So in reality, we live in a socialistic, capitalistic society.
Okay.
And there's a balance.
Okay.
And when the balance gets out of balance, then you start having things like you've got too many people on the payroll, you don't have enough taxpayers, then you start having these social programs, and now we owe China like, God, I think our unfunded liabilities are about $160 trillion, from what they figure. So I think being a conservative is living your life within your own means, spending your own money, trying not to get too over debt, because if something happens, you don't want to have to go out, you don't have to lose your house. So most people say they're conservatives because they follow the politics aspects of it. But do they really live the conservative life? That's what I think it is.
Do you think that comes from what fundamental principles and values do you think have put that in place? I mean,
well, I think
as a nation, we're...
Yeah, I think in my particular case, it comes from your upbringing.
Okay.
And you don't always see it. It's like I told somebody, you kind of go through stages of your life. And my life was, I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player.
Oh,
and I was that good. And when I was 16, I got in a really bad car accident.
Oh.
So that ended that dream. So I didn't have another dream. So that's how I got into construction. I bought a truck. I went into construction. When I was 17, I've been into it since 1973. But as you progress and you go along and you start remembering your childhood, because you don't remember it sometimes when you're through your mid-years, and then you start thinking about, you know, your family, what you grew up. You have to think about, I used to lay on the end of my mom's bed and we used to watch Mitch Miller and the bouncing ball and those little things that were, you know, and I started kind of thinking, and I started, you know, you kind of look in the mirror and I started seeing my father. And now I think when I look in the mirror, I see my father. So, you know, he was conservative, and I've kind of become that way, and I hope I can become half the man he was.
So you admired your father, but you're not a Democrat, as he was.
No, I'm not a Democrat. I don't think the Democrat Party is his Democrat Party anymore.
Okay.
Nope. Because they had the Blue Dog Democrats, they had guys like him that were the working guys, the blue-collar workers, and the Republican Party was not that far away from them. They found middle ground. And some years when they couldn't decide on anything and nothing got done were the best years, because nothing got done wrong either.
Right.
So it's not the same parties.
Well, what are some of the things you would like to, is there anything in particular you would like to accomplish as an assemblyman?
Well, there's a lot of things I'd like to accomplish.
Okay.
A lot of infrastructure things. I think the water problem in the Central Valley with the fish that's non-indigenous to the area, I think is a party politics thing. I don't think it's a true environmental issue. So we need to get up there and we need to put some focus on that, and maybe we need to go up and look at some of their projects. Maybe we need to look at their water delivery system in San Francisco and see if there's any environmental aspects to that, because the water flows right through the Central Valley all the way down to Los Angeles. I don't see an environmental problem for them getting their water. So some of the other things are infrastructures. Like going up to Tehachapi, we need passing lanes for the trucks, because it's got 2 lanes. The trucks are doing about 15 miles an hour, and you're doing about 70, and a truck will pull right out in front of you, right from maybe 30, 40 feet. So, and then another person I just talked to, because I've come out and asked about some issues. They'd like an overcrossing over in the Bielville Caliente, because 58's a highway there. It's not really a freeway, and you have roads merging, and the trucks are coming downhill off a corner, and they're doing about 60 miles an hour, and you got to try to shoot out across that intersection. There's lots of accidents there, and there's lots of fatalities there, so maybe work on an overpass in there.
I think, okay, now I know the route to Tonia also is sort of a hazard. I mean, always you hear of things there. Now, you were in Ridgecrest recently and going out and talking to people about their concerns, what they would like.
Yeah, I was trying to identify what some of the...
What did you find? Was that one of the ones you found?
Well, one of the hot topics out here is the state's going to monitor their wells. That was a real hot topic.
That's a very hot topic.
We have a well at our house too, so it's a hot topic with us too.
Yeah.
And the other hot topic was...
Are you in the same critical zone that Ridgecrest is in?
California, they're going to monitor all of California's wells that are private.
Okay.
So Ridgecrest, I mean, we're on a well too. We're kind of up in a mountain area. We've got a pretty decent well. It serves 4 houses, but we will be monitored too. And when they start monitoring your wells, and they start monitoring all the water in California, I think it's more of a control thing than it is they're concerned so much about the water. You know, we all know we're in a drought, and they're not so concerned that they're building more water, you know, reservoirs. They're not doing anything to, matter of fact, they're tearing dams down up on the Rogue River. So if it's a concern so much, why aren't they building water storage? So,
well, that's been sort of a big topic just in the last year that I've been tuned into the topic, but I don't know that there's been anything done to make that happen. Is that something you would like to make happen?
Well, we've got money tied up in committee and environment, and they had a bond, and the local congressman and everybody was on for it, and I wasn't, because I work for the state. I know what they do. So it was $7.9 billion. So $2.9 billion of that was supposed to be for building new dams and building new storage. And the 5.9 was for other things, like they're restoring the sands at Pismo Beach, which they've already started doing with their money. They're doing bike paths and walkways. So they had to give up $5-point-something billion to the environmentalists for feel-good projects to get this $2.9 billion. This $2.9 billion is tied up. They're not going to do anything with it because they're not going to let them move forward on it. So, you know, you can't keep giving them money because they don't spend it where they say they're going to spend it. It's just like the high-speed rail. The people voted it in under one proposition, and they're not doing what they said they were going to do, so they're not getting federal money, but they're going to do it anyways. And the governor's figured out a way to, he was charging cap and trade to the oil industry, but now the oil industry is stalled because OPEC drove the price down in oil, so he's got no money there. So here we are in a water shortage. They're laying track up in Fresno and going north. It takes about 1 million gallons a mile to do dust control and compaction, so they're wasting water doing that. And yet we don't have infrastructure, water, we don't have reservoirs. So I just think the intent, you know, they don't have the intent to help us. So we can't just keep giving them money.
Okay, so hold the purse tight.
Yes.
Stash the money like your mom did.
Yes.
Somewhere, some way, somehow.
Yeah, the only trouble is we don't have the purse because we don't have the majority. But we need to bring attention to these things. And these other issues are voter initiative. You know, we voted that bond in. And a lot of the Republicans voted yes on it because they thought it was going to do something. You got to look at their true intentions. What are they going to do with it? Are they really going to do something with it? Because they keep doing things. They keep, like one of our pet peeves in Tehachapi and out here too is we have a fire fee / tax.
Okay.
They call it a fee because if they called it a tax it'd be illegal. So they have the Franchise Tax Board collecting it. And it's supposed to be giving money to CAL FIRE for fire prevention and brush clearance and enforcement. But it's just because the budgets, you know, they don't have the budgets, so they're going to generate money in other areas. So they're generating money, they're transferring money around California. Now we're going to be doing work at our work, and we have to have the fire marshal come in and approve any water projects or electrical projects. So we have to pay him from the time he leaves his office till the time he returns his office. So they're pulling money from the park budget to pay for the building inspector and for the fire marshals.
Now, when you get in there with these issues, and particularly the fact that you're going to be in the minority, then how are you going to make change? Or how are you, well, you said pretty much that you're going to try to affect the constituencies of the people who are controlling.
That's the only way we would be able to do it.
Okay, and how can you do that? How would you envision?
Well, I'm sure that everybody in a liberal district is probably not 100% happy. So if you could identify an area in that district that needs something that they're not getting.
Okay.
And we all know people in areas that aren't conservative. I know lots of people in Los Angeles. You know lots of people probably in an area that's liberal. So if those people, instead of sitting still and not saying anything, start saying something, start getting together, maybe we'll organize some marches and go through their town with our signs. You know, that's how they've been getting things from us. It's small minorities, 1% of the population, and they march and they have, you know, they get together and do these things. They get a lot of attention, they get a lot of media, and then the politicians start getting scared and they start thinking, whoa, wait a second, this is not looking good for our district.
I'm going to have to listen to my constituency.
They're the only, yeah, because we're in a minority. I mean, they say, you know, go in there and be a grenade thrower. I'm capable of doing that, but you're not going to get anywhere with it.
Right, right. So you have to really go in and find out underlying issues people have.
Yes, we do, and we have to look for, like I said, like maybe if Hetch Hetchy had some environmental issues that somebody's not pointing out. And that's San Francisco's water supply. It's 90 miles of pipeline going all the way to San Francisco. If they had stopped getting their water supply, I think things would change really fast.
You think we can get a pipeline from the water to Ridgecrest or Tehachapi?
We don't have, well, we do get water in Tehachapi from the aqueduct. They pump it up over the mountains from down on the bottom, so we do get some. I don't know where you would identify. I've talked to people. The closest place you have is the DWP Owens Valley, and I don't think DWP is willing to give you any water. So,
well, people are talking of, though, you always hear people at the water meetings, the GSA meetings, that they want to pipe it in from the ocean.
Right.
This is what people want, that you hear people express.
Right. So if you have a desalination plant sitting right on the ocean, and you supply someone like San Diego's talking about it. So even though it's right on the ocean.
Long Beach has that, don't they?
I don't know. I'm not familiar. I know that San Diego wants one because they're concerned about their water. So the only problem with it is if it's right there where the city is, you don't have long pipelines. You can tie it into your infrastructure you already have, but it's expensive to desalinate water. So you've got to kind of weigh it. Is that your only choice? Then you're going to have to do it. If it's not your only choice, you have another water source, it's cheaper. It's just like it's cheaper to use fossil fuel than it is to use coal or natural gas. It's even cheaper than using wind power and solar because it's just so much more efficient. But you have to have the options to use all those things.
You have such a good handle on these issues. How have you managed to get such a good handle on?
Well, a lot of these things I work with.
Okay.
So I've worked on dams.
Okay.
And I've worked on water. I've worked on pipelines.
What did you do for the government? You said you've worked for the government.
I actually work for California State Parks as a heavy equipment operator.
Okay.
I work on water delivery systems. And we're trained wildland firefighters, and mostly to evacuate people or learn fire behavior for safety. But we do respond to fires. And sometimes we'll get there. Sometimes we'll just assist, usually LA County, and we'll bring our water tender, and usually we'll keep water going to them. We'll go get water. Sometimes we get there first, and one time I got out on the freeway and there was a truck fire and there was a guy underneath the truck on fire. So the only thing I could do was get my cannon off the front of my truck, which is remotely, and just get water on it and cool it down until the fire department got there. So we do a lot of things like that. But prior to the parks is when I worked with a lot of these bigger stuff. Like I worked on a dam down in Winchester. I worked on a dam down in Beaumont. And the funny thing was, you talk about environmental issues, and we had this dam in Winchester. There was probably 15 foot of silt. It was farmland, and this is where they're going to build this dam. We actually found some woolly mammoths and some saber-toothed tigers in this silt, and they didn't shut the job down. They took them out. They've got the people in there. They built a museum at the top of the place. If you go down to the dam in Winchester, they've got a visitor center that's got the mammoth in there. So, it was an environmental issue. I mean, they could have shut it down if it wasn't MWD's project. And the one in Beaumont, the same thing. They used to have the operating engineers training center there, and they got to where we couldn't run equipment anywhere but on the flat roads because there was a kangaroo rat there that they said was endangered. So maybe 5 years down the road, Metropolitan.
When was this?
This was in about 1990, maybe.
Okay.
And
that's when you started hearing a lot about the kangaroo rat.
Yeah, so they had this endangered kangaroo rat. Well, the thing was, this was an old Lockheed rocket engine testing site. So they had concerns about rocket fuel and remnants and different things.
Okay.
So what was funny was, environmental issues with this kangaroo rat. MWD comes in, buys it all, builds a dam, and floods the whole thing. So what did they do? Pick up all the kangaroo rats and move them somewhere else? And what was the issue with the rocket fuel they were talking about? Did they all of a sudden they just immediately evaporated? So it's only an environmental issue when they wanted to do it.
Okay.
And the people that are don't have enough influence to not make it an environmental issue. So there's a couple of projects I've worked on.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, so
very interesting.
Yeah, you kind of get an idea of these things when you're working with them, and you see what's going on.
Right. How committed they are to
these
issues.
To their agenda.
Right. Right. So there are things that can come along and revolutionize things, but you hope that things that people value that are unchangeable. Do you have certain, we have just a few minutes left. What haven't I asked you would like to share, or that you would like to talk about that's helped form your values and principles? You talked about your family, of course.
Well, I guess I have a wife that's here with me today, and I have a daughter, 24-year-old daughter. We have a 1.5-year-old granddaughter. And I had 2 sons. One of them died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's pretty interesting because, and this is kind of a story, I think this is probably a religious story maybe, I don't know, it's something I believe, but my son's grandfather died on his birthday.
Oh.
And he was devastated by that. This was about 20 years ago. And I told him it would be okay, because I believe in God, and I told him it's going to be okay, it's a good thing. It's happened for a reason. So in, I think it was about 2009, my son was diagnosed with cancer. So we were fighting it, we were doing different things. He went through 3 bouts of chemo, he did 4 surgeries, and then finally we started treating him holistically when they just said, you know, you're done. So we got him up. We got him actually back up for about another year, and he was out. He went to Disneyland. We got him an electric wheelchair, and he was doing his thing. So he started getting bad, and we knew he wasn't going to make it. And he probably should have died somewhere in maybe January of 2011, or I mean October of 2011. But he just kept going along. He just kept going along. So we got into 2012. He went through February. He went through January. And he got through February, and it started getting close to my birthday. So, sure enough, he died on my birthday. And
is that right?
Yeah, and so I just have to think, you know, I told him, you know, about his grandfather, and it's going to be a good thing, and it happened to me. So, you know, I got to think it's a good thing because I believe in the Lord, but I still get choked up about it, just thinking about it.
Sure.
So that's just
very
a story.
Significant. Yeah, there's some significance there that. It'll be interesting how you see that.
Yeah, that was in 2012, and I can even talk about it now, and I still get a little choked up about it, but I used to just flat out start crying about it. So, but it's an interesting thing, and it's an interesting story because I'm still trying to figure out the meaning of it, and I know it's a good thing, but
sometimes those take time to get the full meaning.
Yes,
but
they
it's
do.
been so interesting talking to you, and I want to thank you so much for joining us today
and sharing. Thank you. We love Ridgecrest, and like I said, we've been coming out for 40 years, so we want to see Ridgecrest prosper.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you for joining me.
Thank you.